The War for Mansoul by John Bunyan, as told by Ethel Barrett. Copyright 1998, Christian Light Publications Incorporated, Harrisonburg, Virginia. Prologue. Once upon a time, a long, long time ago, there lived a great king, and the name of this king was Shaddai. Now Shaddai had built for himself a great country called Universe, and this country was vast beyond words to describe. It contained enough planets and galaxies of stars to boggle the imagination. As if this were not enough, he had populated it with angels, and over all these angels he had put one angel wiser and more beautiful than all the others, and this angel's name was Lucifer. Lucifer's task and glory was to carry the government of Shaddai to the angels, and to carry back their worship to Shaddai. The situation was perfect, except for one problem. The problem was Lucifer. Lucifer was not content with what he had. He wanted to be as powerful as Shaddai himself, and persuaded the angels to rebel. Lucifer was confident the rebellion would be successful. It was not. Shaddai brought powerful judgment upon Lucifer and his followers. They were cast out of heaven and banished to a miserable pit. Lucifer's name was changed from Lucifer to Diabolus. And the story might have ended there, except for one thing. In one corner of the universe was a place called Earth. On it, Shaddai had built for himself a town, Mansoul. Diabolus stepped to attention. The story was not over. The story was just beginning, for Mansoul was Shaddai's delight. What sweeter revenge could Diabolus have than to take it? And so we have a great king, a wonderful town that he built for his pleasure, and a wicked giant who hates him. And on these three things hangs a tale of love and intrigue and adventure, a tale of castles and strongholds, of battles and banners and trumpets, of thunder and fire and blood, of princes and lords, or armor shining in the sun. A tale of life and death. It all began when Diabolus decided to take Mansoul for himself. Conspiracy amid the brimstone. I must have Mansoul at any cost, said the giant Diabolus. I will settle for nothing less. He was sitting on his haunches, pushing up little mounds of brimstone as he spoke. His warlords sat around him in a circle in one of the private conference caverns of the pit, eyeing the mounds of brimstone. Periodic spurts of fire erupted from crevices and lighted up their faces, and sent their shadows shooting up the sides of the walls. From the huge yawning cavern beyond came occasional blasts of hot air, sometimes rushing through the stalactites and stalagmites with a formidable roar, sometimes winding through with great sighs and moans, sometimes in whispers. And just how, said one of the warlords, still watching the mounds of brimstone, do you propose to do this, my lord? That is why I called this council, Beelzebub, said Diabolus, looking up for a moment at the speaker. I do not know exactly how, but of one thing I am sure. It will be easy. Might I remind you, my lord, said Beelzebub, that this is not BB. They all exchanged glances in silence. BB, Beelzebub went on restlessly, before banishment. Then you were Lucifer, son of morning, created by the great King Shaddai, ruler over all his angels, carrying his government to the angels, carrying the worship back to him, greatest in beauty, greatest in power. Mansoul is Shaddai's treasure, interrupted Diabolus, beginning to flatten out his mounds of brimstone. The one creation Shaddai has set his heart on, cares the most about. What sweeter revenge could I possibly have than to take his most precious possession? I must have it. You must have it, said Beelzebub. That is exactly what happened, BB. You were not satisfied with your lot. Your paunch was growling for more. Only that time you cried, I will set my throne above the throne of Shaddai. I will be like Shaddai. You wanted nothing less than absolute ultimate power, and you tried to start a rebellion. I did start a rebellion, corrected Diabolus, and it worked. Yes, it worked, said Beelzebub, if you mean you're successful in getting enough angels to follow you. But it's like saying the operation was successful, but the patient died. We were all banished to this miserable pit forever, you and your fallen angels with you. They were all silent for a moment, watching the mounds of brimstone being pushed up again. Because you overlooked one thing, said Beelzebub finally, pressing his point. I did not overlook, said Diabolus. I underestimated. Underestimated, then, said Beelzebub. The power you sought, King Shaddai had reserved for his son, Prince Emmanuel. In fact, he had already bestowed upon him. Have you anything more to say? Said Diabolus. And you've had a one-track mind ever since. You hated King Shaddai. And I hate King Shaddai. So much that I can think of nothing else. Have you anything more to say? No, sighed Beelzebub, except to repeat, this is A.B., after banishment, and you are living behind the times. A long moaning rush of hot air reverberated throughout the huge labyrinth of canyons outside the conference room and expired with a sigh. Way off in the distance. They all stopped to listen. And stop doodling, Beelzebub said at last. Diabolus swept the mounds of brimstone away in an elaborate gesture and uncrouched himself. Are you finished? He asked Beelzebub. I am finished, said Beelzebub. I merely wish to reiterate the facts to be perfectly clear that it is in our minds what we are up against. Chipping at your arguments to find a possible chink. I am, of course, he added, leaning forward hungrily on his haunches, with you all the way. Of course, said Diabolus, provided you are realistic about it. Realistic? You cannot hope ever to become Lord of the Universe. That would be highly improbable. That would be highly impossible. I rather fancy being Lord of the Universe, sighed Diabolus, but one does what one can. You are being realistic, said Beelzebub. What are your plans? Diabolus sprang into action. Apollyon, he said, hand me that stick, will you? Legion, draw up closer. And Alecto, perhaps you'd better take notes. The rest of you, watch and listen. He leaned forward with the stick Apollyon handed him and began to make marks in the brimstone. Now, he said, this whole area is universe, situated between these two poles, heaven and hell. And right here is Mansoul. Here, now, as you know, Mansoul is a town so fair, so commodious, so wonderful, so, well, it has no equal under heaven. King Shaddai made it for his delight and for his glory. He gave it dominion over everything around it and enjoys privileges and powers beyond belief. We know that, said Apollyon. How are you planning to take this town? There is a wall, of course, Diabolus went on, and 5 gates, the ear gate, the eye gate, the mouth gate, the nose gate, and the feel gate. The 3 highest in power are Lord Mayor Understanding, and Lord Will, and Mr. Conscience. How are you planning to take it? Said Beelzebub. How are you planning to take it? Said Apollyon. Alecto and the others remained silent. It's impregnable, Diabolus admitted at last. The walls are so made that they cannot be scaled or breached without the consent of those inside. And the gates? The gates cannot be opened without the consent of those inside. They all finished it together. There was a long silence. If we muster all our forces, suggested an underling timidly. You are very stupid, my friend, Diabolus shot back. All our forces would not make a dent. No, my idea... He paused for effect. My idea is to make them want to let us in. Want to let us in? They all cried at once. Who would want to let us in? We look pretty seamy, my lord, Apollyon finished lamely. Our one-time princely appearance is a thing of the past. I know, said Diabolus. I thought of that. A scrubby lot, all of us, a scrubby lot indeed. One look at us and the whole town would be on a red alert. And that is just my strategy. They will not see us. We will be invisible, and they will not see our intentions either. Our intentions will be invisible too, said Legion. We'll cloak them with lies and deceit, said Apollyon. And flattery, said Beelzebub. Yes, said Diabolus. We'll cajole them, delude them, pretending things that are never be, and promising things they shall never get. Lies, 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 the only way to get Mansoul to let us in. And so our intentions will be invisible, and we will be invisible. That is, all except one of us. And I suggest, he looked around the circle of faces, I suggest that I be that one. By all means, they all cried at once, for you are the genius of deceit, a master liar. The master liar, Diabolus corrected. I say this in all modesty, there has never been my equal. He waited for someone to challenge him. No one did. Well then, he said, now that that's decided, the next question is my disguise. What shall it be? They all began to talk at once. A mouse! What could be more harmless than a mouse? No, what could be more stupid than a mouse? It must be something over which they have dominion, but something they respect. One of those beasts Mansoul deems wiser than the rest. Yes, something wise and beautiful. They must be completely disarmed. What do you think? Said Diabolus, pulling up the threads. What do you think of something in the dragon family? A dragon answers all those requisites. He waited for the reaction. They sat in silence, thinking of the dragon, slithering along with grace, beautifully colored and shining in the sun. Their eyes narrowed in wicked pleasure. Now that that's settled, Diabolus sat up straight and rubbed his hands together. You, Apollyon, gather your accoutrements of warfare, map out your plans, prepare to be within bowshot of the town with your army. Have your most skilled sharpshooters coached to pick off any leaders of the town who might get in the way. You, Beelzebub, gather your demons. Appoint a party of hand-picked scouts to go before us and keep their eyes and ears open. You, Alecto, send Mr. Illpaws to me. I want to use him as my co-speaker in case I should get talked into a corner. And, oh, Apollyon? Yes, my lord. Apollyon, there's a certain captain who may give us a bit of trouble. He will undoubtedly be one of those on the city wall. His name is Resistance. Captain Resistance. Have one of your best sharpshooters cover him. Yes, my lord. Diabolus turned again to the whole group. That is all. Council dismissed. They straggled out of the conference room in small groups, some talking, some whispering, and their voices echoed endlessly through the huge yawning caverns, melding with the roars and sighs and groans and inarticulate whispers. Diabolus rubbed his hands together as he watched them go. He pictured the great army soon to be amassed, invisible but deadly. He pictured the sharpshooters with bows drawn, awaiting the order to shoot. He pictured his herald sounding the trumpet for an audience. He pictured the gentry of Mansoul climbing up to the top of the wall to listen. And he pictured himself disguised as a beautiful dragon. He hurried off to his own den to get his thoughts together and compose his speech. Of course, Mr. Illpaws would be on hand to leap in the breach at the slightest hesitation on Mansoul's part. That was his forte. Any conversation that faltered in his presence was doomed. Diabolus was enjoying it already, in fancy. He did hope Mr. Illpaws was in fine fettle. The whole idea was quite heady.